for other entrepreneurs to get the resources you need. So raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur here that's actually building your own business. Awesome. Raise your hand if you know about Startup Week, which is coming up in June. Keep your hand up if you have a ticket. Oh, ouch. Okay, so the biggest event of the entire year is coming up in June. Thank you, Mike. And it is $50 for 100 different events in 1 week. Okay, it's going to be awesome. We have speakers like Mark Suster coming down. If you don't know who that is, it's the best investor in all of Southern California. We've got Tech Crawl, where you kind of go around the city and you can drink beers at all the startups downtown. And then we've got a lot of very tangible workshops, like how do I kick ass with my Kickstarter, or how do I do really well with SEM, or how do I scale the culture of my company. So you should definitely be attending this. If you don't already know about it, go to San Diego startupweek.com. San Diego startupweek.com, okay? And from there you can buy your ticket. I recommend buying it now before the price goes up. Lock it in, and I will see you guys there.
Just one thing quick too, we've gotten a bunch of questions about parking validation. I guess a lot of you guys will drive here in San Diego. There is like a little gray box right here that you stick your ticket in. So if you have to leave early or whatever, just call them. Feel free to validate. Yeah, validate away. Nice. So I'm going to get into intros and introduce the gentleman to my left and right. One quick detail I wanted to cover, we're going to be giving away books throughout. So you'll see this slide, you'll see a question. The question, for the most part, is going to be based on things that we had said prior to that slide, so pay close attention if you want a book. Just something to keep in mind. So this is the sort of first ever San Diego HubSpot user group that's specifically focused on sales, sales methodology, and HubSpot sales products, and that's really what we're going to be talking a lot about today. As I mentioned, I'm Jeff. I work on the product marketing team at HubSpot. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, totally. So I'm Scott. I work on the growth marketing team, so I work on a lot of CRM products and HubSpot sales products and marketing. Similar to Jeff, same team essentially. And one quick thing to add on to what you said, this is actually the first ever HubSpot sales event in history, like ever. We've never done it anywhere in the country, and we plan on rolling it out across the country after this. So give a round of applause for you guys for coming on.
San Diego first.
Why not?
That's what I would ask.
And then Dave.
But also if it's bad, just bear with us.
Keep it amongst us here.
So I'm Dave. I was the first salesperson hired for the sales tools team at HubSpot. So I don't know how much you guys know about HubSpot in general, but we're a public company, been around for like 10 years, and started with marketing software. So the sales products are about 2 years old for us. So I was the first one to start selling that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Nice. So first question, anybody want to raise their hand if you can parrot back to me our names? All right, let's go. Here we go.
Number one.
Round of applause. Twitter handles, I'm Jeffrey Russo. I don't know if you guys are...
Yeah, mine's SJ Towsley.
The real DB.
There you go. Correct answer there. So we're going to talk about three things. I'm going to kick things off really by talking about some of the philosophy that goes into how we think about sales, how we think about what sales should ideally be, and sort of how that translates into some of the tools that you're going to see. Then Scott's going to come up. He's going to talk a little bit about building that foundation for your sales process in HubSpot CRM. And Dave's going to talk about how to actually use these tools, how to actually implement a sales process using HubSpot CRM, using some of our sales tools. I think in general, a lot of what we talk about is really broadly applicable aside from our tools, but that's the general gist of what we're going to cover sort of in order. So like I said, I'm going to kick things off with philosophy. So we talk a lot at HubSpot about this idea of inbound. Has anybody ever seen any of our content presentations on sort of inbound marketing? Familiar to folks? Yeah. So in the early days, inbound marketing was really a term that our founders coined. A lot of other folks refer to it as content marketing. There's a number of different sort of ways to talk about this stuff. But we really talk a lot about, rather than engaging in, we talk about it in the context of marketers a lot, rather than engaging in a lot of sort of old school tactics to blast out your message or take like a really untargeted approach through maybe billboards or paid ads or things like that, really trying to hone in on folks who can get some value out of content you create, and using that technique to sort of attract folks to your company, to your brand, better experience for them, better results for you. And over the past year or so, actually a lot more recently, we've been doing a lot more, is talking about how that sort of methodology applies to the sales space. And that really was sort of born out of this realization. Our founders talked quite a bit about it. This is a story that they've been telling for years, is that there's been this huge sort of shift in power. So if you think about the way that people bought 10, 15, 20, 60 years ago, for a very long time, it was pretty much the same, right? They were reliant on a salesperson to give them any kind of information about a product. So if I were making some kind of a big ticket purchase and I wanted to talk to someone who was already using it, the only source for me to hopefully get in touch with somebody was probably through a sales rep. The only way that I could get any kind of pricing information was probably through a sales rep. That is obviously very, very different today, and that sort of power shift, like I said, something we've been talking about, sort of how it affects marketers for a long time, starting to think about how that applies to sales folks. There's a couple of other implications from that too. I know I'm very good at this. I can't remember the last time someone successfully got me through a cold call, but we're all very efficient at tuning out sort of some of those old school tactics and interruptions. So if you get a cold call, you know, it's very easy to identify a number that you don't recognize, right? 10 years ago, that was like a paid feature on your landline. 15 years ago, that didn't exist. Same thing with email, right? Cold, sort of untargeted emails are less and less successful. If you think about things like Google Inbox, it's getting much harder to reach people through those types of tactics. I mentioned this a minute ago. As buyers, we just sort of know how to find our own information. I use a couple of examples here, G2 Crowd, LinkedIn. These are something that we see come up in the sales process at HubSpot quite a bit. There are niche review sites out there for pretty much every software space, for pretty much anything you could buy. So if you're a buyer, super easy for you to find your own information on whatever it is that you're possibly considering. Easy for you to find other folks who have used that in the past, who are sort of in that process of maybe making a purchase. You know, when we do buy, we really do it now on our own timeline and terms, right? It's less and less common that it's instigated by a sales process. This stat in particular is one that we cite quite a bit. There's a bunch of other stats like it with similar but varying percentages. Most of the purchase process, because we as buyers can find all this information ourselves, really happens before we get in touch with a vendor. That's sort of the norm today. So you're probably saying to yourself, I know I sort of say to myself as I'm saying this to all of you, is, you know, so what, right? This isn't really news to anyone. We all sort of live and buy in this world every day. It's kind of become the norm. The thing that I think is important to recognize is that there's really never been a good articulation of a better way to sell in this world, which is a lot of what you're going to hear me and you're going to hear these guys talk about. A lot of sales teams really still do pursue a pretty dated process that isn't sort of updated for some of these dynamics. So another question, what percentage of the purchase process, okay, this guy right here, okay. Give away a few.
So they're not all percentage. They're not all.
Well, it's pretty competitive.
All right, we'll give you one too. We'll give you one. 2 for 1 special.
Yeah. There are also the questions aren't all percentage based, so you guys are trying to scan.
Cut you off price.
Yes, questions aren't.
So what does a sort of legacy or a dated sales process look like? Obviously, what is the alternative to that? We think of a sort of legacy sales process really being centered around the way salespeople want to sell or the way an organization wants to sell to a buyer. So if you Google sales process, you can maybe see some examples behind me. There are a million different people who have tried to outline a million different approaches. If you really piece through them, for the most part, they're all very process-centric from the perspective of a rep or from the perspective of a company. You know, when it comes to actually finding folks to reach out to, in a lot of cases, the sales process sort of starts with prospecting based off of demographics. So I know that I might have success selling to people who are in a specific business segment, a specific industry, a specific company size, maybe a specific revenue range, and I use that as sort of a starting point to go out and hunt for email addresses or phone numbers. When it comes time to actually connect with these folks, a lot of sales folks really use what amounts to brute force and a pretty generic approach in a lot of cases. So repeated messaging with like I said, sort of a generic pitch, sort of the same message to all of your different prospects over and over again until you eke out that little percentage of people who are ultimately in the buying process who are going to respond. And then when it's actually at a point where you're connected with someone, when you're going to maybe deliver a demo or talk to them about what their needs are, the process is still relatively generic. It's really focused on sort of throughput, doing things quickly, moving on the company's timeline with not a ton of attention paid to sort of the buyer's perspective on things. So, you know, you can probably see how those things are somewhat mismatched. I think a lot of sales folks and a lot of companies have sort of their perspective on how a sales process should operate, and that's somewhat out of step with how we all sort of on the flip side expect to buy things today, which is why a lot of these things just don't work as well anymore. And you know, there have been, I think, people and sort of products that have tried to kind of crack this nut. And a lot of the ways that they've done it is really by trying to increase the throughput of a salesperson, right? So take what is working today and try to scale it up a little bit or scale it up a lot to get sort of increased returns out of it. So what do I mean? I mean, there's a ton of tools out there that'll sort of help you automate the process of finding more email addresses, finding more phone numbers, maybe sending not just a couple dozen prospecting emails, but sending a couple thousand every day. You can all probably think of a few examples. I know every time I pop onto Product Hunt, there's a couple new things like that that are popping up all the time. The problem is that you can definitely scale up some of these activities. You can find ways to make more calls more quickly. You can find ways to send more emails in bulk. And yes, it does generate some amount of increasing returns, but it requires a huge amount of activity to eke out just a very small percentage in improvement. So talked a lot about sort of the state of things today and kind of what doesn't work from our perspective. I think the natural question is, what is the alternative? And that's what I'm going to kind of start here, and that's what these guys are going to talk a lot about. And that's really where this idea of inbound comes in. So thinking about the sort of needs of your buyer, making their needs the ultimate priority, and being willing to sort of meet them halfway on this. So this is a simple way to sum it up. Sell unto others as you'd have them sell unto you. So really making the sales process relevant, making the sales process useful and helpful to the folks you're buying from. So a few sort of core tenets of what we think an inbound sales process should look like. So you might remember a minute ago I talked about an inbound sales process really being centered around the way a company wants to sell versus the way a buyer wants to buy and sort of where they are in their own process. That's sort of flipped on its head in an inbound sales process. So centered around the buyer's actions, what they're doing, where they see themselves in the purchase process versus trying to sort of wrench them through a process on a certain timeline and a certain process that your company has set up. So when possible, starting with inbound interest. We'll talk a little bit about what that means, but really starting with folks who are coming to you in as many cases as possible and connecting with them based on some context. So based on some things you've been able to learn about them as early as possible in the process. So capturing buyer and seller data, that's sort of a core part of every sales process, but doing it automatically and really making that a seamless process for the rep so that there's not a ton of data entry involved, so that all that context is there, it's stored in one place, it's very easily accessible for the salesperson who might be reaching out on a regular basis, and also the marketer who wants to personalize the way they're connecting with this individual. And there was one more in there. Yeah, so really making a seamless experience, this kind of plays off what I just mentioned, making a seamless experience for your buyers across the whole process, right? So whether someone's been generated as a lead by marketing, if they may be originated from sales, making sure that all of those communications are in context of one another, and it really doesn't feel like you're dealing with disparate people or different departments. And that's sort of the process. This is sort of how we immortalized it in a methodology that we actually just rolled out a few weeks ago. And what Scott and Dave are going to talk about is what does an inbound sales process actually look like? And what are we doing at each of these steps to take that sort of more inbound approach? So, who remembers the 4 stages that I just briefly showed?
Identify, connect, explore,
Bingo. That was a tough one. So I'm going to hand it off to Scott to talk a little bit about the foundation.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jeff, you are?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Jeff talked a little bit about the philosophy. You know, what is inbound sales? Why is it different than outbound sales? And now I'm going to talk a little more about the tactics behind it and what does the foundation of an inbound sales process look like. So again, I'm Scott Towsley. I'm a growth marketer at HubSpot. I handle all of the marketing for CRM and HubSpot sales. But first, I just kind of have a question, a really general question for you guys who just want to shout stuff out. Currently, how do you manage all your relationships with customers, prospects, leads? Anything other than HubSpot? Anything? Intercom? Okay, cool. Sugar. Who said Excel? Great. All right, so as we were building this software, we're thinking, all right, how are people actually managing the relationships right now between clients, customers, leads, etc. But then we said, all right, let's take a step back. Have you ever used a CRM before? The past 3 months, we've asked this question, have you used a CRM before? And these were the results. 61% of all new HubSpot CRM users have never used a CRM before. So that made us think, okay, well, what are you using instead? Before we jump into the tactics, anyone who's not familiar with the CRM, it means customer relationship management. And essentially, it's just one massive database for housing all your relationships with prospects, leads, and customers. Pretty straightforward. So we surveyed 28,000 people. 61% of them said, I've never used a CRM before. So our question is, how are 17,000 people managing their relationships who've never used a CRM? This is what we got. So here are spreadsheets in the back. 15% other. 16% say it's in my head. I don't know about that. 17% pen and paper, and 52% say spreadsheets. How are 52% of spreadsheets? There. Robert?
Yeah.
Robert. And, awesome. Spreadsheets. Everyone who's never used a CRM before is managing their relationships through spreadsheets. But let's break it down and just think about the other answers. 16% say it's in my head. I don't own my own business, but I would imagine most people who do own their own business, which looks like at least half of you, there's a lot of things going on in your head. So it's essentially pretty easy to get distracted and with all the relationships. Don't mess it up. Pen and paper, this is immediately what I thought of with all of any sort of relationship you have. So those left side of the graph, I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. This, on the other hand, does make sense. This is what managing your relationships in a spreadsheet looks like. You have columns, name, email address, company, phone number, maybe a Twitter handle, last time we talked, notes from a call. Add some more people, second, 5 people, 10. It's all the same thing. It's pretty straightforward. It's a really easy way to manage all of your contacts. So why would anyone use spreadsheets? It's free. Everyone loves free. It's very easy to use. And you have completely unlimited data. So you have as many contacts as you like, as many companies as you like. Doesn't matter. Why would you not? It's the greatest thing. It's awesome. It's free. There's so many reasons why. Well, this is why not. You start adding contacts to that spreadsheet, you're going to get to 50, 100, 300, 500, 3,000. And it starts to look like this, where you're just scrolling forever and trying to figure out what the heck, who is where in your sales process, etc. And that's a typical reaction of someone who has a ton of contacts in a spreadsheet. So if there's one takeaway from my entire section of the presentation, is please, if you're managing your contacts and spreadsheets, just stop. So that's the question, is there a smarter way to manage relationships? Yes. CRM. Same thing. CRM is a central database for housing all relationships with anyone. Of course, I'm here to talk about the HubSpot CRM. There's tons of options out there for CRMs, but I'll run through how ours works and maybe touch on a couple others at the latter half of my presentation. With the HubSpot CRM, you get unlimited contacts, unlimited users, unlimited data, and it's free. What? Yeah, so it's very similar to spreadsheets. You have the same benefits of a spreadsheet, but it's slightly easier to organize all your info. There are 3 main views of a HubSpot CRM. Let's say you leave tonight like, oh, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to walk you through just like the very basics and the general overview of what everything looks like. First is the contacts overview. This is what happens when you open the CRM and you click on contacts. This is what you see. The left side is a filter, so you can find like, I only want to see contacts in San Diego. That's irrelevant. Let's just totally simplify it. Does that look familiar? Name, email, company name, phone number. Columns, rows, same exact thing as the spreadsheet. The problem is with the spreadsheet, if I want to go in here and click on Kenna Griffin, obviously you can't do that, but if I want to say, all right, what's the last thing I said to Kenna? I either have to scroll all the way over on that side of the column, or maybe I have it in Evernote or some other pen and paper. It's in my head. But the thing is, you can't look at historical contacts of communication you've had with these people. That's where the contacts timeline comes in. All right, let's say I'm in the contacts overview. This is the same thing that you just saw. Sensitive. Graham Winder, I'm thinking, okay, seems like a good guy. So I click on his name, and this is what I see. Over here. You got his picture on the left side, any general info about him also on the bottom left, such as his company, when did he get added to the CRM. Very general things. Top right, I can add a note, I can email him, I can call him, all from this same area. And on the bottom right is all communication history. If you're scrolling in the CRM, this is kind of what it looks like. You have, let's say, an email that Dave Barron sent, or a marketing email that Jeff sent. It's all going to come here in the same exact spot. So you have all communication history you've ever had with this one person, all in one spot. Now if we look at this top row here, I'll just fly through these. So you can add a new note. So I type @David Barron, Graham's a great fit, you should reach out. And so Dave gets it, and he's like, oh, okay. Great. You can send an email from here. I could say, hey, Graham, it was great chatting with you. Hope to talk again soon. Boom. I don't have to go to Gmail and send it. But the beauty is this syncs with Gmail and Outlook to automatically log emails. You don't have to send an email in Gmail and then go to your CRM and say, I sent an email. So there's no manual data entry. You can also place a call. I click call Graham from my phone. Boom, I get like someone number and I enter it, and then it immediately connects to Graham. I can record the call if I want, if I'm in sales and I want to improve my sales calls. Likewise, syncs with your phone and it automatically logs calls. So with a lot of other legacy CRM software, you call someone and then you have to go in your CRM and write, I called someone. So this does it all for you. You can log activity. You can create a task, such as follow up with Graham a week. Next one, or you can schedule a meeting with him straight from here. Again, starting to see why you should not use spreadsheets. You have the overview, and then you can get historical contacts behind all communication you've had. Third section, this deal pipeline is going to be best for if you're in sales or if you're in business development. Anywhere to where you have, okay, someone I think is interested in my company, to then they're definitely interested, to I think they're ready to buy, to they purchased. And if you look at it, it's set up similar. Does anyone use Trello? Same thing. You take a deal and you drag it over here. So I set an appointment with Bethany Associates Inc. I talk to them, appointment completed, drag it over. Simple as Trello. Let's give an example. Kobe Bryant. He's retired, maybe he's got some extra money floating around, he's bored, wants to buy whatever you're selling. This is an inbound sales methodology that Jeff touched on earlier. Say Kobe's interested in your product. He's saying, all right, I want to check it out, I want to talk to you. He sets an appointment with you. Simple as that. You talk to Kobe. And then you realize, all right, he would definitely be a good fit. And this ties back into what Jeff was saying of there's different stages of the sales process. And I know Dave's a huge advocate of it. There's no sense in selling something to someone who isn't going to benefit in the long term. Because just getting a one-off sale doesn't make sense. They're going to lose trust in you, think, I'd never want to buy that. That was a horrible idea. And it basically eliminating buyer's remorse, and that's what that is. Drag it over, buyer's journey confirmed. Now he's definitely interested, he's a great fit, he's close to actually purchasing, but he hasn't purchased yet. So you move that over to working upgrade, and again, you just drag and drop. Take it there, drag and drop. And move him through the inbound sales process. Then you have a customer. Move it to close one. Say he says, I'm not interested at this time, move to close lost. Very similar. So, as an overview, we have contacts overview. Looks just like Excel, identical. Contacts timeline gives you the context of any communication you've had with someone all in one spot. And the deal pipeline, which helps you move a deal from one section to the next throughout the buyer's journey. It's really the foundation of how everything works. What are the three
Context
primary
overview, timeline plus deal pipeline.
Dang!
I think they're learning.
Yeah.
Questions.
Oh, man.
Raise your hand and just follow.
All right, Jeff, we got to think harder questions. Yeah. I think these are kind of elementary. You got contacts overview, contact timeline, deal pipeline. Why would you use the HubSpot CRM? It's free. It's easy to use. Unlimited data. Why not?
No manual data entry.
That is your reaction using HubSpot CRM. But the thing is, okay, yeah, you can pitch me as the greatest CRM in the world. But is it really the best CRM? Come on. If you work for HubSpot, obviously you think it is. My answer is it depends. It's the best CRM. If you have more than 500 employees, absolutely recommend something over here. If you have less than 500, absolutely recommend something over here. HubSpot CRM was designed for startups, small to medium-sized businesses, people who don't need it, like all these crazy advanced features, who are sick of manual logging calls, manually logging emails, which is this entire bucket, and they're like, I'm a small company, I don't have the budget to buy a multi-$1,000 CRM. So we made this free CRM. And it's like a place to house all of your contacts. Like, all right, cool. Well, let's say I'm in this bucket right here. Which one should I pick?
HubSpot.
I say HubSpot. That's my answer. But if you're up here and you're skeptical and you say, no, I don't know, Scott seems kind of scammy, then you can look it up yourself. It's the same thing if I visit Austin, Texas, and I'm trying to figure out where should I eat, and someone tells me on the street where I should eat. I'm like, okay, I'll look it up. And I go on Yelp, and I look up if it would be a good restaurant to eat at. GQ Crowd's the same thing. Jeff touched on this. It's essentially like Yelp for software. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. Go to ggcrowd.com/category/CRM, and you can get the rankings of current CRMs in the marketplace. Again, some CRMs are paid, some CRMs are free. Currently, we're sitting number 2, right behind the Salesforce CRM, and there are thousands and thousands of reviews for all of these software. Even if you Google CRM software review, this is what you're going to get, this webpage. So check it out yourself if you know. Exactly what Jeff was saying. The buying landscape is totally shit. I can, like I said, I can have the most persuasive speech in the world, but in the end, you're probably going to go home and Google it yourself and look it up. And that's really what we're trying to practice what we preach, and building software that recognizes where a customer is in their buyer's journey, and building a foundation to where you can that actually supports that concept. So an inbound sales process is centered around the buyer's actions instead of the salesperson's process. It's the one thing I want you to take away from this. Please, if you're managing your contacts with spreadsheets, just stop. Use a free CRM. And you go from this to this. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And I'll have Dave come up now. And just an interesting note, so HubSpot Sales is a relatively new software compared to HubSpot Marketing. I know we have some HubSpot Marketing users out there. Again, it's pretty new software. Dave actually just closed the most amount in MRR in history for sales products last month. So I had to throw that out there before you came up here. So, round of applause for Dave.
So I guess that's a pretty good transition into the next slides then. So, right, like we're a company, we got to make money. We do have a freemium funnel with the sales tools at HubSpot. Everything that Scott showed you, contacts, companies, deals, tasks, anything that a normal company would charge you for CRM, we give away for free. Now, there are certain aspects of the tools which we'll go through really lightly through my presentation, which if you guys want to see them in more detail, happy to do a one-on-one session with you post. I think this is definitely more about like methodology and how you should be thinking about sales. So we'll go through some of that stuff. Some of those tools are more like sales acceleration, how to make the inbound sales process a little bit more efficient. So part of my presentation is going to be a little bit like Jeff's, part of it's going to be a little bit like Scott's. And so you're leaving here and you're like, all right, there's this inbound sales thing, there's this CRM thing. It's like, where do I start with sales? Where I would suggest starting is with the buyer's journey framework. Now, this is essentially how someone would move through your funnel, right? So it's going to be, how does someone become aware that they have an issue, right? So awareness is going to be buyers identify a challenge. So in our example, that would be something like, I'm using spreadsheets and I can't keep track of anything. Holy crap, I have a problem, right? For you guys, maybe different, maybe something else. Consideration is like, okay, I definitely have a problem, and my goal now is to fix the problem. So what does that look like, right? And then it's, okay, I now have all of these possible solutions, and what do I look at? So again, this is a framework, right? Like we actually, on our team, don't even use a buyer's journey that looks like this. Ours is kind of like matrixed out with who you are, the size of your company, how far down you've adopted our free products. This is a framework to think about and how you start actually doing sales. Every single person that is in each stage here is going to respond differently to a different need, right? Someone who is just aware of their problem doesn't need a demo of your tools. This is super important. The legacy sales process is prospect, demo, close. Nothing to do with the buyer. The reason I was able to close so much MRR here is because you have to look at where someone is, what they need, and just overall be helpful, right? You're trying to be helpful, especially if you're a startup. You're trying to figure out, is this person a good fit for my product or service? We don't want to sell something that's not a good fit, especially early on, because that person then becomes a raving fan of yours, evangelizes what you do, and is an early adopter. Super, super important. What's the second? Am I getting my own books?
I got it.
Come on. Tell me now.
Who had it? Cool.
Thank you. Great. Are there any questions? Okay. So again, legacy versus inbound sales process, right? The buyer's journey should come first. Again, it's going to look different for everybody in the room, depending on what your business is, depending on product, service, whatever you're doing, but your sales process should match where someone is in the buyer's journey. If you talk to someone and they're like, I have this problem, what am I going to say to them? What content and collateral can I give to them to help them through the process, to help them understand? So the first part we went over is going to be the buyer's journey, right? How is someone actually moving through our funnel? How are they becoming aware of their problem? How are they deciding? The second piece is going to be, what are my buyer personas? So you can think about the buyer's journey like someone in there is kind of like a little avatar, and they're just kind of moving through, and they're like completely gray. They have no profile, but they all have the same problems. The buyer personas are going to be a lot more specific. So it's going to be like, so these are my sequences. I wouldn't be surprised if someone in this room has received one of these emails or something like it. Essentially, what this does is with Gmail or Outlook, we're going to automate your follow-up process, but we're not going to let you mass mail. We're not going to let you take that list of 1,000 and send them the same email. Instead, what we're going to make you do is put in one email address and then customize all of the email follow-up to that person. So you can see here, this is Scott. So you can see I can come in here, I can edit this email. I put in links, which best practice on email templates, super short, 2 to 3 hyperlinks back to your website or blog, and then also in the subject line, your product and the person's company or first name. People like to open emails that have their first name in them. So essentially, we send this first email. If someone doesn't reply in X amount of days or X amount of weeks, we then send this email, and I customize this. So on and so forth through the sequence. I hit enroll and send. All of these emails are logged back to CRM. All of these emails go out for me automatically. If someone decides they want to respond to one of these emails, simply unenrolls them from the sequence, and I pick up my sales process from there. So I customize my entire follow-up one time, and I hit enroll. Now all of these are going out automatically for me over the course of time. So we have a couple other things, like we have a cool meetings calendar app that we bury links to in all of these emails so someone can book time on your calendar. If they book time on your calendar, they see this, they grab a time, they grab a date, auto logs in CRM, both parties get an email, both parties get an invite, it'll stop the sequence as well. So we put a lot of these in a lot of the marketing emails that Scott and Jeff write. So if you do have like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact and you're looking for a way to book some more meetings, I would say get a calendar app, doesn't have to be ours, put the link in there and shoot those out. So I think I'm going to probably wrap up there just because I don't want to go too product heavy, because I think this is more like a methodology kind of thing. If you guys do want to see, yes please.
I was going to ask you, like, there's maybe a lot of features, but in terms of like products that you guys sell, like which feature falls into which products, and like what are the standard tiers that you have? So.
Yeah, so the tools that I showed specifically are paid tools. So we have a free version of CRM, like CRM is completely free, and then the paid tools we call HubSpot Sales. HubSpot Sales has a free version, which gives you like 5 email templates and 200 email open and click notifications. And then we have a $50 version, which is HubSpot Sales Pro, which is like sequences, meetings, that sort of thing. And all on our website as well for all that stuff.
And then separate from HubSpot Marketing.
Separate from HubSpot Marketing, yeah, they're independent platforms. All right, so let me get back here. All right, so want to download HubSpot CRM, try HubSpot CRM, hubspot.com/CRM. You can be up and running in 30 seconds. If you want to learn more about HubSpot Sales, some of the tools that I went through, this is a super long URL. You're probably better off just grabbing one of my cards and emailing me your questions, and I can email that stuff back to you. And then this, I think, is super important. Take the inbound sales methodology certification. Super, super intuitive. Mark Roberge created this whole thing. He's kind of the father of the inbound sales methodology and has been super, super helpful for us. So, how big it needs to be now? Oh, I think it's just cycling. Or I'm going the wrong way. Cool. All right. So, thank you, everybody, for listening to us and coming. It's been really great. So we'll open up the floor probably for 15 or 20 minutes of Q&A. Anything that we went over today or just anything in general. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Do you want to kind of come up here, panel stop?
Yeah. So we scheduled the event to go till 7 p.m. So if you guys want to ask questions until then, great. Questions die out before then, no problem. We can head out a little bit early, and or if you want to hang out and network, that's great too. So, first question. Yeah.
So emails, I can see all the emails and I'm able to do exactly what you were describing. But it looks like there's more things that I would want to know about from CRM, like what campaign that might be affiliated with. So anything you can share on future plans.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, most of that stuff already exists in product. So when you're in the CRM, and I'm not going to get too into the weeds, like we can go over this separately, but essentially you can filter the timeline in the CRM for all of the marketing analytic events. You can do workflows, you can do campaigns, you can do marketing emails, and you can bring all of that stuff up on the timeline.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So a lot of that stuff's there. If there's anything else that you're looking for, just like ping me and I can give you like a better roadmap stuff.
Actually, a specific question related to that. Is it possible for automated emails and quote-unquote bulk emails and campaigns to be listed in line within the timeline in the CRM that are coming out of the marketing platform?
Yeah, for sure. So all of the marketing analytics, all of the marketing communications, all show up in the timeline.
Right. Well, the problem I'm having is that the guys actually have to click on my campaigns and the automation emails to see what the email is.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you want to see the actual content of
Almost
that
like
email.
the sales rep sending it.
Okay. Yeah, I have the same problem with Scott's emails. So, all right, cool. If you want to take a card, email me after, and I can like talk to the product team and see
I
what
would
we're
like to
talking
see
about
that same thing.
there. Okay. Cool. It's good feedback.
Go ahead. Sorry, yeah.
Nice work, guys. Play off each other well. The email templates, really nice. You can create as many different templates and what have you. You have a similar feature for, I can't remember what it was called, the feature for calendar appointments. I want to send an invite with an agenda that's a pretty standardized agenda. Is there a similar feature in the calendar invites to the email templates?
So the answer I think is no to that question. I can tell you what I do. So if someone books time on my calendar, it's obviously on both of our calendars and in the CRM. I actually have a template called meeting response template. And what I do is I actually reply to the meeting invite and I put that into a sequence for that person. And so they'll get like, hey, before our call, like here are 3 questions that I want to know about. Also, like here's what I'm thinking about for the call. And so we do it like that.
In an email.
In an email.
It's an email sequence that will reply based on the when they get their calendar.
So you can also put in a description on the meeting. So like mine is like, hey, I'm gonna send you over some questions and there'll be WebEx details there. Yeah. So you can do it like that. And then the last thing I'll say about meeting is that it's a custom form field as well. So when someone goes to book, we require name and email for someone to book time with you, but you can add a bunch of custom forms. So if there's places that you want to get more detail from someone, I wouldn't recommend going too overboard because obviously the more information you're trying to get from someone up front, the lower the conversion rate is going to be to meeting.
Yeah, so like whenever I send out my personal meetings link, I'll say the only custom field I'll add in, what's your phone number? So then as soon as someone books a meeting, you don't have to send follow-up email, hey, what's your phone number? It's all right there.
What about GoToMeeting integration or something like that?
That comes up as a question quite a bit. I don't think we have any plans at this point, but in general, meetings is something you're focused quite a bit on. There's a few new things coming down the pipeline. I wouldn't be surprised at some point in the
There
future.
actually is a GoToWebinar.
There's a GoToWebinar
Yeah, it's
integration.
not the same thing. This is for the, when you're scheduling that meeting, you want to check the box to say, send go to meeting.
So if you have a personal room for GoToMeeting, a lot of the presentation software, you have now like a personal room, like with a personal link. You can put that in the description of the meeting, so when it gets sent out, people see that. So that's like how I do it when I book meetings, is I leave my WebEx link in there, and so people can see that.
Yeah, so you can automate that. If someone books a meeting, boom, there you go. Have your
So I got you in the back right. Yeah, so recruiting, what else do we get? PR, I see a lot. Some people use it for like project management. Account management. Yeah, we see it a lot for recruiting.
what?
Max emails that can be sent from the CRM. I mean, for sequences, we limit you to 150 enrolls per day because we're trying to discourage like that mass mail type of activity. But like, if you want to sit there and fire off one-off emails, like we're not going to stop you from doing that. Cool. Yeah.
On the, we do a lot of work with Google with free marketing. So a lot of the merchant sequences
I mean,
We're not in campaign for that specific thing.
So they're plain text emails, right?
yeah, so I think, so they're plain text emails, I guess if you hid whatever that is behind a URL, maybe you could do it, but I think probably the answer is no.
What our paid acquisition specialist does is he uses like Facebook lookalike audiences for paid targeting. Maybe that's an idea if you can look at it, all right, I want to look at a group of 1,000 people who are currently my customers and target anyone who's similar to them on Facebook. Remarketing, I'm not.
So I think it's even different with landing page. But I think it's going to be investor lead marketing code for these sequels.
No. So I think that fundamentally is like what we do, I think, in the marketing software with the UTM tracking back to the website. So like we think of these as more like sales emails. I think it makes sense to be able to track sales emails back to conversions on the website. We just don't have it yet. Yep.
So the activity tracking on the site, I assume it's anonymous until they give you some information. Can you hook into that with an API so if someone registers your service, you can make that connection?
So I don't know that we're gonna ever be able to populate like a cookie off the API because like someone actually needs to submit the form on HubSpot or on our lead-in tool. But we do have public-facing APIs for contacts, companies, and deals. Like our biggest client, I don't know if you guys know Shopify. They are fully on the HubSpot stack and on HubSpot CRM, and they build heavily on our APIs. So if you have dev resources to do it, like I've seen people do a lot of cool things with billing and integrated.
Is the API, we have dev resources, is the API exposing? Can I like cookie them myself and sort of phone home?
I don't know.
There are some things you can do with respect to tying an identity to a HubSpot cookie through the API. I don't know the nitty-gritty details, but it is documented. We can definitely share that with you.
Developers.hubspot.com will give you all of our stuff, yeah. Cool. Yep.
My question is about integrating both accounting software and invoicing software, the integrations there are. It's great to drag those things to close one, but everyone wants to get paid for it.
Yeah. So as of today, nothing native besides I think FreshBooks. FreshBooks. I think in the future we'll probably have a lot more integrations. If you have dev resources, you can build on the API. Even our team, like we use Stripe to capture our payments, and we're tapping into our API to connect them. So I think more integrations in the future for sure. Right now it's API or drag and drop, I guess. Cool. Yep.
I think you probably agree that the mobile app is pretty limited. Can you say anything about your plans for mobile?
When's the last time you downloaded it?
It's like a week or two ago. I don't know.
A week or two ago? Okay, cool. So,
Yeah, so we rolled out there's been a mobile app that's been in beta for a number of months. We rolled it out formally to the App Store about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. There are some places where I think the mobile app in its current form does a very good job of things. There are some places where if we knew what the feedback would be and we're kind of working on things, but specifically like there's not a way to surface company level data through there. We've got all sort of the depth of information you have on contacts, on deals, you can edit fields, you can check out the timeline, all that kind of stuff. But in general, the mobile app's a big priority, and I think if you download the sort of production, the new version as of today, if it's been a little while since you've seen it, they have made a bunch of improvements, and that's going to continue to get better.
Is there anything particular you want to do with the mobile app?
I think we're going to use it to every feature of CRM and HubSpot sales. I don't know what I would call it now, but all of them in there are great. Yeah.
mobile was definitely a huge part of like 2016 for us. So more cool stuff.
From an inbound perspective, a lot of the campaign is kind of generating inbound phone calls. And I'm curious, my example in particular is we use Salesforce as our CRM, we have integration with HubSpot. We generate a lot of inbound calls and no way to attribute those back to a specific campaign. It's a huge blind spot for us. There are out of box, places like Invoga and Allrail, but we guys have any plans for those type of stuff. I mean, how does inbound phone calls get into your guys' CRM system?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of integration partners. I want to say Invoca is one of them that we have a native integration with on the marketing side. I'd have to look into exactly how that interfaces just with the free CRM product, but that's probably the best bet as of today.
Yeah, I think like in general it's kind of a blind spot because it's kind of a beast to handle inbound calling. So I don't know if we have plans to do inbound calling Yeah, so we have a VoIP partnership with Twilio. So essentially, like, you have two options when you put in a call. You can call from your browser, which means you're internet dependent. So like when I'm in the office and I'm hardwired into our internet, I place my calls through the CRM. I have USB headset or like my Apple headphones on. Just places the call over the internet. It looks like it's coming from my number. So you do have to have like an actual number. We don't give you a number. And then if I'm at home where my internet's really bad, like I have Comcast at home and it's terrible, I use call from browser. So essentially what that means is I hit it, or excuse me, call my phone. I hit it, the button in CRM, it calls my phone, I pick it up, it then places the call out. So it's doing the call over my cell phone network versus over the internet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you guys don't use like a PBX landline or like a office?
I don't know. I have a.
Sometimes I'll record phone calls for customer interviews to just like share with the team. And I record all my phones or calls and through my cell phone too.
Yeah.
I know people call from the browser. You just plug in your headphones and start talking, but you can do it either way.
Yeah, we also do all of our sales coaching. We do like twice a week. We have what we call film reviews. So someone on the team brings a call, we listen to it, and we basically tear it down and give feedback. So we do all that through the CRM as well.
We just hired 2 new salespeople, and I got them set up on a Google Voice number.
Yeah.
Is there any advantage or disadvantage to using the Google Voice number like that?
So you'd still have to have like a Google Voice number, right? You'd still have to have an actual phone number that you pay for through some provider to
But
use.
you don't pay anything through Google Voice.
Oh, then I don't
Do you
know.
have a number like 858 blah blah blah?
Yeah.
But
Google
you're
Voice is set up.
associated with another number.
Right.
That's what it means.
So that's probably similar to the association process you go through to get HubSpot sales up and running. So there's a pretty simple process.
So I associated the HubSpot with the Google Voice number. It all works.
Yeah.
It should. I haven't heard of anyone.
If you want to jump on a call too, I can sit there while you set it up and help
I
trouble.
think I got it all set up. I just wanted to.
I'm doing that
And
for work.
It works. Cool. Yeah, so Google Voice. That's actually pretty sweet.
Then if first of all, if they have their own voicemail, their personal voicemail, they can set up their business one on the Google Voice number. And if they ever leave, we could keep that Google Voice number because it's associated to their Gmail account that we own.
Sweet. Cool.
Other questions or?
When you're,
No.
So another thing I tried for a little while, maybe to adjust it, I typically don't send emails from the CRM tool because they don't get logged in my sent mail. That's true.
What do you use for your mail client? Gmail. So we just released a two-way sync with Gmail. So you might have to just like disconnect. And again, if you want to take my card, I can send you the instructions after. I'm flying back tomorrow. But essentially, any email that you send from CRM will now route through Gmail and then go out. So it'll be in your sent folder. And we're also going to capture all of your inbound emails as well. So someone emails you, it shows up in CRM. We've had it, I think, on our team probably since like September. So it's been in like this beta phase for a while, but we're rolling it out now, so we can get you hooked up with that.
Any plans to integrate card scanning into the CRM?
I've been personally pitching that forever. I think that would be amazing on the app, just like Evernote has it, to where you scan it and then.
Infusionsoft has it, that may help you.
no,
Yeah. So
Is there-
maybe
Yeah, it's definitely something we can bring up. I've heard a bunch of folks ask for it as a mobile app. I don't know that it's on the roadmap right now, but it's a common request.
is there a Zapier integration?
So there is a Zapier integration. There is someone who does that. I don't remember who it is offhand, but you can do it through that third-party service, and then through the Zapier integration, you can port those details into HubSpot CRM as new leads. So that is one option. It's a good point. If there's no other questions, we'll be around. Happy to catch up with folks one-on-one. Thank you all so much for making it out.
yeah.